without further ado, let's get started and let's talk about what's going on in Ukraine. As we mentioned, sort of like a game of, I think, of chicken right now.
War chicken.
Chicken.
That's my least favorite dish.
No, you like chicken Kiev, but you don't like war chicken.
I do not want any war chicken. No.
Well, you then won't like what's going on today because we'll get to Russian mouthpiece Sergei Lavrov in a moment. But first, I want to start with where I think these games are being played, and it's like you and I right now are sort of in the crosshairs of all of this. It's like Washington doesn't give a rat's ass about what Putin is saying right now. So Vladimir Putin is warning the West that if they provide long-range heavy weapons to Ukraine, they will retaliate, not just against Ukrainian targets that they've left largely untouched, but Western targets as well. Now, I've been brushing up on my Russian, so I'm going to try to translate. Here's Vladimir Putin in an interview last night. Take a listen. See.
Будут поставляться, из этого мы будем делать соответствующие выводы, применять свои средства поражения, которых у нас достаточно.
Now, I'm lying. I don't speak Russian. But what he's basically saying is we are going to be hitting targets that so far we have not hit if the West continues to do what it's doing, which is continuing to funnel in heavy weapons.
Which, again, last week when President Biden was asked, will you be sending long-range weapons that can strike inside of Russia to Ukraine? The president just answered a flat no. When he was in Asia, he said no, right? And so Russian sources responded to that and said, good decision, because if targets are hit inside of Russia, we will retaliate where those decisions are made. And we know if they are not made inside Ukraine, right? So we are looking at the source of those decisions. Well, the UK yesterday said, we're willing to take that risk. We are going to send long-range missiles. The United States now is saying, yeah, we think that's an acceptable risk too. So this is not just a game of politics right now. This is a game with all of our lives, because if Russia says we are going to retaliate where those decisions are made, that means we will be looking outside of Ukraine for retaliation, which means that all of us in the West are at risk.
Right, so that's where we're talking about this game of chicken. So, okay, you want to play it on the battlefield in Ukraine, which you, by the way, West does not care about Ukraine. They do not care about the Ukrainian people. They do not care about the country of Ukraine. They simply care about the interests
Western people do, obviously.
I'm talking about Western leaders. I'm talking about Western leaders do not care. Yeah, totally different. Like you watching right now, yes, I'm sure you care about the Ukrainian people. We care about the Ukrainian people. Western leaders do not care about the Ukrainian people. They don't care about the Yemeni people. They don't care about the Somalis. They care about battlegrounds.
They definitely don't care about Nigerian people who had an awful tragedy over the weekend. Right. And no thoughts and prayers for them anywhere out of Western leaders.
So now Russia is closing in on taking total control over the eastern region of Ukraine. This would be a great time, actually, maybe to come out and have some peace talks, right? Have some settlement talks. But instead, President Biden has announced he's going to send Ukraine these HIMARS, these high mobility artillery rocket systems, the M142s, and Britain is going to supply M270s, the multiple launch grenade systems. Spain, Germany also lining up new long-range heavy weapons to Vladimir Zelensky. Here's how the BBC in good old, jolly old England had to say about sending these weapons in to Ukraine. Take a listen to the BBC.
Now, the UK has joined America in announcing it will send long-range mobile rocket launchers to Ukraine. The combined number is thought to be less than 10, but they represent a significant upgrade to the Ukrainian armed forces, which have struggled to counter long-range artillery being used by the Russian military. Moscow has warned it will, in response, strike at targets which it has not yet been hitting. Our defense correspondent, Jonathan Beale, reports.
Don't you just love how the Brits play? They're like, well, and they will hit other targets that they haven't been hitting. Okay, let's move on to soccer now. We've got a big game tonight between Chelsea.
No, they wouldn't say soccer. They'd say football. But yeah, I mean, that's us, guys. Right?
Yeah, that's hitting other targets. So
all of us in the West, where our leaders are supporting this, Russia is saying, okay, hold on to your butts because we're watching you now, right? And it's not, I mean, he's Vladimir Putin saying we will draw these conclusions as if they don't have intelligence that shows where these are coming from, right? They know it's not about like, oh, we're going to put two and two together they know, they
Right.
already know, right? And so you can't say things like this in the press and be like, well, they read the news, so they knew it was us. No, intelligence is far more advanced than that.
So yeah, Russian mouthpiece Sergei Lavrov says that there's going to, what are we going to do here? What we're going to do is we're going to actually invade further into Ukraine. Okay, so here's how this is all laid out now. So you guys want to keep sending heavy weapons into Ukraine against us. What we are going to do to protect our homeland, our motherland, Mother Russia, is that we are going to take over more land in Ukraine than we already had planned to do. That way, your long-range missiles that you're installing right at the border areas where we have already taken over are not going to be able to hit Russia. So here's what Sergei Lavrov had to say. Here is his quote in an interview yesterday. The longer the range of the systems that will be delivered, the further we will move back the Nazis from that line, which threats to Russian speakers and the Russian Federation may come. Okay, so again, that's Sergei Lavrov saying we're going to continue to push in.
It's not great grammar, but we get the point, right? Like these are serious threats.
And of course, I'm sure perhaps something lost in translation.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, you can infer here what they're saying is like, look, this is not going to accomplish what you think it's going to accomplish. We're not even going to let them get here. So then this conflict, which is not going the way the West has been telling us, is going to continue to move. So, what we heard from American generals last week was, well, we're going to first strengthen the hand of Ukraine before we come to the negotiations table. For those of us not involved in military strategy, it seems like now is the time. We don't need more violence. We need more talks because people are getting killed.
So that right now, what Sergei Lavrov said, I mean, that's going to lead to basically the total destruction of Ukraine, which of course the West doesn't really give a shit about. They don't care about the leveling of Ukraine. They want to use it as staging ground to further NATO interests, right? Just to give you a frame of reference on how dominating the Russian forces are, here's a new video that was just released yesterday. I want to show you. This is on Russian positions. This is Russian armed forces raining hell into the Ukrainian positions in the Nikolaev Krivoy area direction, picking apart troop positions with deadly accuracy. So take a look at this. This is some B-roll here of what's happening. These are Russian positions hitting inside of Ukraine and just basically destroying entire areas right now. And you can see, I'm going to show you more. This is an entire hold-up area where Ukrainian forces had been held up in basements in these different areas, in these different buildings. I also saw some behind-the-scenes information on bunkers that were being used by Ukraine and very, very tight quarters underground. So this is some behind the scenes of what's going on here with these Russian positions, just picking apart these Ukrainian positions. And you can see all of the video from the sky. Look at these, more of these attacks, just raining hell down on these positions. And this morning, you're getting a number of troops, more troop surrenders in other sections of eastern Ukraine, also surrendering.
So for those of us in the West, we really don't have any say in this, right? Our leaders are saying we are going to take your taxpayer dollars, buy really deadly equipment and send it into Ukraine, but we have no way of asking for any accountability. We don't know if it will even make it there at this point. It doesn't really look good for the likelihood of of those weapons even getting there. Or if they do arrive, will they be used and will they be used in a way that causes retaliation upon us, right? There's so many questions here. And I guess what we're supposed to do is just sort of say, okay, more weapons.
Well, and I spoke to a fighter jet pilot today who said, when you send these HIMARS in, that's one thing. And depending on which units you actually get, some of them have GPS in the rockets themselves, some of them don't. So newer, older versions. You still, regardless of the GPS, you actually still need someone to supply coordinates for those HIMARS, right? So it's not a matter of like painting a target. That's something we've moved beyond now. It's a matter of someone providing you a coordinate of an enemy location. Who's providing those coordinates? If all of their forces are being decimated, who knows? But likely it's the United States. It's other NATO countries saying, on this bridge is located a section of Russian forces. So the United States working in lockstep, providing these targets, maybe then they can execute and actually fire these HIMARS. But it's certainly not the Ukrainian army. They have no air power. They have nothing in the sky. They have no eyes in the sky, and they have no forward military members right now to be able to say there's where those forces are located. That's the pinpoint location.
And a lot of their forces were conscripted, right? And so
Right.
they're not trained for this.
And today, as we have just been telling you, they've been surrendering. So that's the very latest on Ukraine this afternoon. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.